Was that you?
Yeah, I mean, I did have a great thing where I am not in pain with my back right now, and that's
Oh,
fantastic. I
clever.
Woo!
my I got kind of a chiropractic adjustment, and it's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah, so that's good. The rest of it
Nice.
sucks. All that homework.
Who gave you homework? What a jerk.
I know, right?
Right?
You know what? I wouldn't put up with it. I'd walk.
Ah, but walking is effort.
That's a good point. Never mind. Just put up with it. Good point. Okay, groovy. Well, let's see. We left last time. We had just finished up some
We did some IK.
IK, right? And memory serves me correctly, I think it does. I asked you guys all to go through the process of putting together the rest of those IK systems for today. Does that sound right?
Yes.
I'm going to take that as a you sure did, Clayton. You sure did.
I'm just behind.
Okay.
It's been a struggle to catch up.
Just cause, or cause anything particular that we've done in here that needs some extra
Not necessarily because of anything in here, but like just a while back, one of my teams, we had an in-person meeting that we ended up not being able to make it to your course for. So since that point, I've just been playing catch up.
Oh, that's right. That was with Glenn.
Yeah.
Monsieur Glenn Harmon.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good guy. Was that helpful for you guys?
It was really enjoyable, yeah.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. Well, gosh, I don't know what to tell you. If you need some extra help outside of this, let me know, or Sarah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of catching up. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about other people, but I I have a lot more on my plate than I expected this semester, so it's going to be a process, I guess.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm pretty sure we're all getting whooped this semester, so it is what it is.
It's the way it goes.
True. Yeah, I'm dead.
Be merciful, Clayton, please.
Oh, I'll do my best.
I haven't recovered from last summer, so I'm still just like.
Sorry, give me just 1 second, then Lillian, I'm going to take a look at your question. Okay, sorry about that. Question problem. IK handles are acting weird on the legs, and it is messing with my preferred angles. Let's take a look at. Can you share it with me, Lillian?
Yes, I can. Let's see. So I was able to get the preferred angles and connect them correctly on the arms, but when I try to do them on the legs, oh, they show an odd angle, and when I try to go in, let me find it here. So I put a preferred angle as 5. It just changed.
So the preferred angle actually goes in the elbow joint or the knee joint, not up in the hip. So you've just got that on the wrong.
Oh, you're right.
Wrong joint.
Okay. I'm out of it.
Let's see if that fixes it. Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so I set it as 5 on this one. It's just this middle one. It always tends to change this to 90.
Okay.
And originally
Okay.
it doesn't ever have that.
Okay. Let's start. Go ahead and undo your IK handle creation and show me your root joint of your leg. Let's just take a look at your values really quick. Actually, I'm going to put this on my other monitor. Okay, that looks fine. So let's go down to your next one. And okay, I see a problem. Do you see a problem? I see a problem.
I feel like I should see a problem, but I don't.
In your channel box, look closely and see if you can find it.
Is it something to do with my translate?
Yep. Yep. You should only have translate values in X. If you remember, that value X shows you the length or the distance away from the root joint. If you have values in other directions, that means that. Whoa! If you have values in oh, am I recording? I am. Good. Wanted to make sure I got that singing part in there. Values in those other two dimensions means that you have come off axis from that the orientation of that joint.
Okay.
Right. So take a look at your tip joint as well. Let's just look at your values there.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing there. So it's not to say they're not oriented correctly, but it is to say that you have that root joint. You know what? Try this. Parent the tip joint directly to the root joint. Oh no, you've got values there as well. Yeah, your orientation is just off.
The orientation's off now?
The orientation, yeah. So that is your problem, is that the orientation is off. But let's see if we can fix it. Go ahead and reparent that hierarchy back the way it was. And what happens if you just, with the hierarchy the way it is, if you just orient your joint chain using the orient joint tool?
I'm sorry, ask that one more time. Sorry, my brain is so dead.
You're fine. Go up to the skeleton and let's pull up the orient joint tool. And yeah, get your settings right. Yep, that's the way it should be. X down, Y is pointing back. Yep. And now let's take a look at your knee joint. Values on your knee joint again. Okay, and maybe this is just what you did before. So if you were to go ahead and unparent the tip joint. What we're going to do is try to create a straight line between the hip and the ankle. And then we'll orient the hip to the ankle, and then we'll use that orientation to help us slide the knee into place where it needs to go. Okay. So go ahead and take the knee joint out of that hierarchy. You just hit Shift P or wherever, it doesn't matter. Okay. And go ahead and just run an orientation on leg 01. Wait, this is problematic though, because that means your FK joints were oriented incorrectly as well.
I can go back and read.
It's easier to go back and do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and use your orient joint tool. And you just hit apply. And that should point your x-axis directly down.
Change that. I don't think these were the correct settings for it.
That's okay. Yeah, so if you did your secondary axis, if you had Z pointing in the positive X direction.
There we go.
That ought to work. Okay. So, and then why don't you take the tip joint down there at the end and just zero out those, those joint orients. We'll probably have to do that again. Okay, now go ahead and reparent the knee into the hierarchy. And let's take a look at the knee. Let's start off by, we'll zero out the values. We can fix those later, but let's just zero them out for a minute. and look at your translate Y and Z. You should not have those values there. So if you just go ahead and zero those out, it will shift the joint, but very, very slightly.
Okay.
It was a tiny, tiny bit because those values were so small. But that tells you now that the knee is perfectly in alignment between the hip and the ankle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Show your geo layer really quick. Okay, and take a peek and make sure that's still mostly in the center of mass. Would you be happy with that?
It looks slightly off of center, but I mean,
But if this is a hinge,
yeah,
and
I think
the nail or the whatever, the cylinder is going through that Z-axis, it really doesn't matter so much
yeah.
where that pivot point is, right? So really, I think you're fine.
Okay.
So from there, go ahead and let's look at your knee values again. Joint 2, right? Your joint orient values are all at 0, great. You only have translate X values, great. So you are in alignment with the hip. The hip is in alignment with the ankle. So you should be able now just to reintroduce 3, the ankle under joint 2, right? And everything's in alignment still, so you just have X values. So
Okay.
if you do have a straight leg, so you do need to put in a preferred angle value on your knee, not the hip, but the knee. And make sure you take it out. You still have 90 degrees in your, yep. You should be able to build that now.
There we go. That worked beautifully.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and like I said, make sure you go back and your whole blending system isn't going to work correctly unless you go back and you're
Fix the
basically going to
FK.
have to redo all of the FK. Yeah, you'll have to redo the joint chains and the orientation at least of the
Okay.
controls. So,
Yeah.
and actually, I'd suggest that you take the IK handle off and duplicate the joints. Duplicate another chain for the FK right off of that.
Okay. Can do.
Cool.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. Let's see. Looks like Natalie has a hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering if the hip was oriented correctly, you should never have values on the knee and ankle, right?
The only value you might have, and I did this on mine intentionally, if you remember, you might have a joint orient Z value on the knee joint. I'll share my screen really quick. Go to side view. The only reason this might happen is if you have a bend in the knee. And I intentionally put that in there so that I could put this here and you guys could see that. Other than that, I rotated on that hinge going through the knee. As long as that's the only axis that you're rotating or orienting on is that Z axis, then you're okay. Put a little bend in the knee. But again, no values in the Y and the Z channels for translate or in the X and Y joint orient values in the knee. So those are your two cases. Either no joint orient values in the knee, you're a straight line, or you might have a slight bit of that orient Z.
Okay. And could you fix the knee by just zeroing out those values that it has, or do you have to unparent it and everything, go through the whole process?
Okay, so the reason we went through that process just now with Lillian was because the hip was actually pointed, it was oriented in, I don't know what direction it was oriented in. And so by going through that process, you're essentially creating that the orientation that is a straight line from the hip down to the ankle.
Okay.
Once you've created that and you reintroduce that knee joint back in, then you can zero it out and it will ensure that it snaps to that same line, right? That same line of orientation. Otherwise, you're zeroing it out to who knows what orientation.
Okay.
Okay, good. Any other questions about this? I don't mind answering them.
Really fast. So before you showed us how to go into your channel I think it was channel box editor, and hide the controls or the joints from the animator. How do you undo that?
To hide the joints. Well, I've done it a couple ways. We've done it here in a layer. We've done it here under the show menu. You can do
It
joints
was
up there.
in the in your channel box in your channels, there was like the visibility on and off switch, and you were able to like get rid of that.
Oh yes, you can lock. You right click, select it, and then right click lock and hide.
Yes. How do you get it back?
Oh, that's the fun question. Okay, it's the best way is, I'll show you the manual way. The best way is after that, create a script to do it for you, because this is really annoying and tedious. You have to go to Edit, Channel Control, and then you have to go to this Locked tab. Well, let me lock one really quick. Let's take Visibility, and I will lock and hide. Okay, so now let's go back. So now that it is locked and hidden, I can go to this Locked tab, and I will find Visibility here. This is the locked pane, and this is the unlocked pane. So I have to move it from the locked pane to the unlocked pane. Great, I just did it. It's unlocked. I can find it here in the list, Visibility, but it's not visible in my channel box. So then I have to go back to the Keyable tab. I have to find Visibility, and I have to move it from non-keyable hidden over to keyable. Not only does that mean you can set keys on it, but it's also visible now in the channel box. So you have to go through that process of unlocking it and then making it keyable / visible in the channel box.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And like I said, you know, if you were to look in your script editor now, you would find a couple commands right here, these set adder commands on your visibility channel. You could script out that idea really, really quickly, and I'd highly recommend it for things like that. So, okay, great. Other thoughts? Okay. All right, and I'm just going to go through the process really quick of doing the same thing I asked you to do, right? I'm going to mirror my IK controls essentially over to the other side and set my IK controls up for the legs. And then we can start tying some things together. We'll do a little organization, and then we'll start tying things together and working on our IK, or our receiving kinematics, our RK system. Okay. If you do need to stop me at any time, please go ahead. So I'm going to go through the process of, I want to mirror, even though I'm not really mirroring, but mirror my controls over to the other side. So I think what I'll do here is just select my IK main group here. I'm just going to duplicate it. And that group is already at the origin, so I'll just scale it in -1. It's on the other side. That's what I needed. So I do need an IK system over here. So let's bring up skeleton. Create IK handle. So we'll go from here to here. Let's rename this. This is going to be right arm IK handle. Let's verify that that matches up with the other side. Oh, right arm 01, sorry. Right arm 01, okay. And I'm also going to select the IK handle. And I'm going to select actually I can just snap these things, never mind. I was going to use my control creator thing, but these are all in world locations, so I could just snap them into place. So I'm going to take these 3 controls. I better start by renaming them. So I'll go to modify, search replace. We're going to replace everything with left, L_ with R underscore, replace the whole hierarchy. Let's go ahead and expand the whole thing so we can delete the pole vector, and this IK handle node was duplicated, but it's not actually functional. Neither is a duplicated constraint, in case you've forgotten that. Okay, so I'm also going to, no, I don't want to freeze the transformations on this, but I am going to freeze just the scale values. I better take these out of the hierarchy. Sorry, let's do this. I'm going to take those duplicate controls, they're control groups. I'm going to take them out of the hierarchy, and I'll delete the main control group. These should all have negative scale values on them. I'm going to go ahead and just, well, we'll do it over here, just freeze scale. Okay, that should turn them essentially right side out because they were turned inside out. So right side out. And then I just want to verify everything is where it's supposed to be. So I expect all of these controls to be oriented to world, okay? Not to, you know, they were inverted. I scaled them all, if you remember. I scaled them backwards in on themselves. So it's I froze my transformations, and it looks like it's given them this rotation of 180 degrees in order to account for that. But again, all my IK controls are going to be based on the world coordinates. So I'm going to take, let's start with the base control and this IK control. We're going to use the groups, because if I freeze the groups, it will also freeze the children. Okay, children don't need it because they're all zeroed out. They're inheriting the same transformations from the parent. But let's take those two, and I'm going to freeze the rotation values as well, and that should reset my orientation to world, which I can verify down here with the world coordinate system. All right, select my controls and verify that that's actually true, and it is. Okay, the pole vector control is a little bit trickier because the pole vector does rely on the orientation of the arm, if you remember right. So this one, I'm probably gonna have to do this one a little bit by hand. So I think what I'll do is take this control and its offset group. I'm just gonna zero out the offset group so it resets back to the, actually I don't even have to do that, I'm sorry. Let's take the smartest way to do this. Here's what I'll do. I'm just going to take the control out of the hierarchy. And then I'll take this pole vector control group. And this is the topmost parent. And I'll select the elbow and match the rotation of the elbow. So it's going to flip it around the other direction. Okay. The reason I unparented this beforehand was because if it was still parented, it would have flipped where the control was, because the orientation basically flipped 180 degrees. So I took that out of the hierarchy. And remember, this is the one part of the IK system that doesn't match up with the world, because we have to stay in the same plane as the arm, as the IK system. Otherwise, the elbow will bend, or excuse me, the shoulder will turn, changing the direction of the elbow from its default. What we don't want to do, we want it to stay in its default state. So we oriented this main overall group, which means my offset group should still be exactly where it needs to be, although it's coming out the wrong side of the arm. So really, I just need to take this value and flip it. Can't remember if I showed you guys this before. I could just change this from negative to positive, but you can do basic math inside of the channel box. So if I wanted to make this positive instead of negative, I can multiply by a -1. So if you just click on the field and you say times equals a value, right? This is similar to code. If you do a times equals or a plus equals, it's going to say take the current value, multiply it with whatever's on the right side of this equation, and then set that to the field value. So if I just times equals -1, it will set that value to be the positive form of it. Okay, and then I can reparent this control into the offset. Okay, I do have a few values in there because this was scaled -1. So all I need to do is freeze these all out. Right, and then they will match that of the offset group and that whole parenting structure here. Okay. That maybe is the more confusing way to do that, so I'll do it a different way on the knees. But if you do want to keep the exact same shapes and use the same method we used with the FK system, that is how you would do it with your IK system. Okay, so let's go down here now to the leg. So I need to create a control for the root at the hip. I think I'll bring out my toolbox here. And we'll just create a circle at the hip. We'll create a circle at the, actually, you know what? I'm going to create a cube. Let's do something a little different on the foot. And then at the knee, we'll do one of those stars again at the knee. Okay. And then I better name these appropriately because the naming is based off, my script there bases the naming off of the joint itself. So this is going to be left leg IK. No, I had it right. Left leg 01 IK control. That's correct. Oh, but it's not because it's the base. I'm sorry. This is left leg 01 base control. And this one down here at the foot is going to be left leg 01 IK. And then at the knee, this is going to be left leg 01 PV or pull vector control, and then we'll still as well. And while we're here, for organization's sake, let's just take those 3 controls, groups, parent groups, and then I will group them into one overall group. And we'll call this the 01 IK. And I probably ought to do that for my right arm as well, since I deleted that earlier. So right arm base, IK and pull vector groups. We'll call that right arm 01 pull vector IK main control group. Move that up here. We ought to remember to actually hook these controls up to the system, but I'll come back and do that after I've created the controls for the legs as well. Okay, I will name this IK handle on the arm correctly though. There was another one of the same name, so it called it 1. Why is it still doing that? Right arm IK handle. So this is not an uncommon problem. Oh, it's up here. Did I already create one and then I created it again? I must have. I'll just delete that one. I didn't think it would allow you to build 2 of them. Oh yeah, well, because you can overlap them. Okay, sorry, I already had it built. I just got to remember to hook that up. I'll give this a quick save. We'll just version it up for today. 6. I have that in the downloads folder. Okay. Leg again. Let's work our way back down to this left leg. So the base control orientation is world orientation. Right now, you can see that it's given it some orientation to match that of the joint. I don't need that. So I'm just going to zero this out. Okay, that changes the orientation of my control, so I'll just rotate this 90 degrees. We scale this up some. Let's take a look at the model. I need to make sure this is visible enough that I can control it. Maybe I'll scale out a little bit in this direction. Let's go with something like that. Let's go a little more this direction. Okay, I'm going to make this red. And then I have to remember to freeze out the values on the control, right? Never the control group. If we look at the control group, that's going to have a position, but no rotation values because I want that to match the world orientation. So select this control and freeze. I'll just do freeze all. Okay, and that control is ready to go. Let's go down here to the ankle. So this is left leg 01 IK control. So same deal here. I need the pivot point to be where the IK handle is. The IK handle, however, does not have any orientation. It is at world. So my script matched the orientation of the IK control. So it's already at world orientation. Okay. But I am going to sculpt this out a little bit to kind of match the foot. So I'm going to go into my CV mode here. If I there we go, control vertex. And oops, let's turn off IK handles too. Bring this down, I'm going to hold D and drag my pivot down and V and snap it to the bottom of this cube. So my pivot's at the bottom, and now I can hold X and snap this down to the ground, right? The grid. And I am in CV mode, right? So my pivot point's not changing. That's still here at the ankle where the IK handle is. But this allows me to be able to move this shape around. So let's scale it out a little bit. And I'll take these leading vertices and bring them out here towards the toe. I'm going to show the geometry again. Well, it's not geometry, but this is. And just kind of sort of shape this around the foot. Crazy. I think that's a little bit easier to grab, maybe. We'll see. Very clear what it goes to, though, as it surrounds the foot here. So that'll be my foot control. I want to make that red as well. And again, because I was moving the CVs or the vertices of this curve, not the object itself, I don't get any transformation values on it, and my pivot point is still exactly where I expect it to be. Oops, at that last tip joint where the IK handle is. All right, so the pole vector controller, remember that's the one that's a little bit different, a little bit tricky. So again, my script automatically steals the orientation from whatever object I had selected. If you don't have a script like that, that's fine. You just create your control and then make sure you select the group of the control and the knee joint and go to modify, match all transformations. And that will move it to the right position and orient it with the knee. And again, as long as your leg has been oriented correctly, this method works just great. So now I need to bring that control out in front of the knee, but remember, I don't want to have values on it. So we're going to create an offset group. So I'll just duplicate my pole vector control, press down and delete to get rid of the shape node. And then we want to use the same naming convention, right? So this is going to be right arm 01, or excuse me, left leg 01 pole vector offset group. Offset group. And then we're going to parent the pole vector control right under the offset group. And then we can move the offset group out. You can see that the Y kind of comes down at an angle. Okay, I'd really prefer to have this kind of horizontally right straight across from that joint. Okay, I'm oriented in the same plane. So these axes, as long as I don't move this way, right, which you can, I mean, just imagine if you were saying, hey, knee, point at this control, and I moved it this way, then the hip's going to have to turn so that the knee will point to one side or the other. But if I just pull straight out in this dimension, that's not going to change the way the knee points. Neither is this, as long as I'm in the same axis as the leg is already, which I am. So as long as I don't move it back and forth in Z, I'm fine. So we'll go to a side view. And I can just move along this plane here. And I can put it, say, there. That's more or less horizontal. I don't have to be perfect about it. You can see I have X translation, I have Y translation. But again, because it inherits the orientation from the pole vector control group, everything is still perfectly in alignment. And then I can take this control. I just don't like its shape orientation, so I'll just rotate that up 90 degrees and go ahead and freeze the transformations on the control. All right, as long as the pivot point didn't change, we're fine. Okay, I think I might actually move that out just a little bit more. So I have to select the offset group. Let's just bring it out just a little further. I'll make sure that knee never accidentally hits or goes through that pole vector control, or the knee will flip backwards. Which is a bad thing. At least I think it would be. I've never had that happen. Doesn't sound very enticing. Alrighty. So there is our left leg. I'm going to make this control red as well. Okay, so we have to do the same thing over on the right side now. So I'll select the joint, and the pole vector handle. And I'm just going to create, let's do something crazy so I know that I've got the wrong controls. Let's just do these curved spheres. Okay, and this one I'm doing a little bit different. I'm going to do this kind of more similar to how we did the FK system. I'm going to create the controls first, make sure the orientation is correct, and then I'm going to duplicate the other controls over and replace, I'm going to steal the shapes from one and replace the others. So I don't have to, last time I scaled and then I had to reorient everything. That was a little bit messy, but either way you have to deal with orientation, right? So let's start here up at the base control. Remember again, the orientation is going to match world. So all I really have to do is just freeze my rotations. If I undo that, you can see it resets everything to world orientation. Wonderful. Down here at the base, or excuse me, where the IK handle is, at the tip, that one already. If I'm clicking on the control group, my orientation already matches world. There's no rotation values. And here at the knee, again, we'll just make sure. I should have already done it, but if I select the control group and the joint, and then we'll do modify match transforms, and we'll get that to match up nicely with the knee and the orientation of the leg. Let's go ahead and duplicate this control. Press down, and delete to duplicate the shape. That didn't. Oh, I have multiple shapes on this, so I'm going to have to do this a few times. Oh, it doesn't like it. Maybe I'll show the shapes. So right-click in the outliner and show shapes. There we go. Okay, now I've got to get my naming all set up correctly as well. I can't forget to do that. So take this control and make it a parent or a child of that offset group that we created. So again, let's do our naming really quick. So starting up at the top, this is going to be right leg 01 base. Well, that should say IK base. Did I really just put base control? It did in parent group. I'm going to fix those. IK base control. I like to have IK in there so I know exactly what the system is. So let's go to the leg here, and I'm just going to fix that. IK base control. The left arm, same thing. I got it right with the control, but not with the group. And the right arm, I got it right with the control, but not with the group. Consistency. I was consistently wrong. Okay. So that control is ready to go. It's ready to be replaced. So now we'll come down here to the pole vector control. So we're going to say right leg 01, pole vector control. We're going to have right leg 01 pole vector offset group. Here we have right leg 01 pole vector control. And then down at the bottom, this one's just called right leg 01 IK control. Its associated parent group. We'll just give it that suffix. And then let's just select the parent groups for all three of those controls. Control G. And we'll make this right leg 01 IK main control. Okay, so orientation, naming, organization, that's all correct. Now I just need to go ahead and do some replacement shapes. I'll actually need to do more than that. I also need to get my control, the offset group, positioned out in the same place. And I'm going to use a little trick for that as well. I'm actually going to create a locator at the center of this control. I'll do it after I flip it. Let's flip them all first. So let's select the left leg IK control group. I'm going to duplicate it. And the origin is, or the pivot point is at the origin. So we'll just scale it at -1 across the world there. Remember, the whole idea here is we just want to steal the shapes. Replace the right side controls with the ones we've already shaped correctly from the left side. So now that I have them over here, all I have to do is select the duplicate and then the original I want to replace. And again, I'm just using scripts. You guys, we went through this, so you should have this in place by now. All right, so that's going to replace that one. Let's go down here to the foot, and it's, so I selected a joint. We need this control right here. So I'll just press G to redo my last command. Oh, are those working? Yeah, they're working. Okay. The pole vector, like I said, we're going to have to do a little bit of a trick here because I need not just the control, but I need the offset to be out at the same location. So I'm just going to create a locator at the position of this control. So again, this is scripted for me. It just creates a locator right there. And then I should be able to take the offset group, just V-snap it to that locator. And then I should be able to just replace that star control. So there it is right there. We'll replace the sphere with the star control that I duplicated over from the other side. Replace. And then I can delete that locator again. So the locator was only there as a little helper object, so I had something to snap to because there isn't really a center to this star. There's no way for me to snap to that. So that little helper allowed me to do that pretty quickly and easily. So then I can delete all of those extra groups that were created, those duplicates. We don't need any of those. Okay, and controls are all created. Well, let's save that one more time. And then really we just go through the process of just hooking these up really quickly. So this side we already hooked up. We have, well, I better bend to this first so we can verify it. And pole vector control works as well. So we'll just undo that. So we'll just go through the process of setting these back up again. So here we're going to take the right arm 01 IK handle. And I'm going to select the IK control here and just press P. We're going to parent that directly into the hierarchy of the IK control. And I can select the base control and the root joint at the shoulder. And that's going to be a point constraint. And then I'll take the pole vector control and shift select the IK handle, and that's going to be a pole vector constraint. And then you just, again, verify they're working. So yes, yes, and yes. You should, by the way, when you do select that or create that pole vector constraint, that pole vector should not shift. Again, I just want to repeat that. It should never shift. So I do like to check that. I didn't that time, but let's do it this time with the leg. So select, this time I'll just do the base control first, and then the root joint at the hip, constrain point. You remember we do a point constraint here because all you can do is change its position. The rotation is all determined by the IK system itself. The IK handle here at the leg, Lego 1, we're just going to parent that directly under left leg IK handle. And then we're left here with the knee. So again, I want to show you how to verify this. If you select the IK handle, you will see that white arrow. This is indicating the direction of the pole vector currently, and it should be pointing out towards where this pole vector control is. Again, an indication of whether or not you got the orientation correct on the leg. Okay, I'll select the pole vector control, shift select the IK handle. There's my chance to kind of verify this. And then when I go to constrain pole vector, I don't know if you saw it, I'm going to undo and redo. That doesn't shift at all. If it shifts even a tiny bit, there's an indication that your orientation of your joint chain or the position of your pole vector are incorrect. I should say and or. So it could be both. All right, one more time. Right leg, IK handle. I'm going to parent that directly to the IK control at the foot. Let's take the base control and shift select the hip joint there at the root. And we're going to point constrain that. And then we'll take the pole vector control and its associated IK handle and do a pole vector constraint. And go ahead and verify you're working. All right, looks lovely. Same thing over here. Great. Everything looks snazzy. So those IK handles, you know, your animate, they have a really high selection priority. If your animator ever went like this, they'd start moving them around without the controls and everything that goes with them. So let's go ahead and just select all of our IK handles. I'm just going to press H. We're going to hide them right now. If we need to touch them again, great. We'll unhide them or we'll deal with them directly in the hierarchy. But really, we don't want to accidentally mess anything up while we're rigging, and we definitely want to keep them hidden away from whoever's animating because they're really easy to select and mess up. So hierarchies are all tightened up here. Just reorder these because I'm type A. I go left, right, left, right. Everything looks great. Let's go ahead and give that one more save. Hit continue. And stop for any questions. Were you guys able to get this far without many issues? Did anyone get this
Yep.
far?
I did. I
Okay.
think, yeah, IK was pretty straightforward.
I'll let you know when you're caught up with me.
Okay, thanks. I'll catch up to you one day. Fix a few things. Okay. All right. Great. I think I just saved this. I better. Oh yeah, I did. Great. Let's add one more little thing we haven't done yet, just to keep you on your toes. And because I think it's really nice when you're animating to have this. Sometimes, I mean, these shapes look exactly the same and they're not all that far apart from each other. And sometimes it gets to a point where you're animating and you're not sure which one of them goes to which leg, or the same thing in the arm. So I like to create a little helper control. It's not really a control, but a little helper that clarifies that specific case for my IK systems. So what I'm going to do is create a curve that goes directly from the knee joint to the center of this control. So I'm going to need some helper objects again because I don't have a center point that I can snap to. So I'm just going to select my little star control here, and same thing, just create a locator right there at the center. And that will allow me to go up to create, and we're going to do curve tools and create a CV curve. I need to also make sure I go up to my options. So again, that's the little hammer icon in the top right corner is one way of accessing your tool settings. By default, this is set to a cubic curve, right? So it's going to, it doesn't actually even start drawing the curve until I lay down my 4th point, right? But it tries to keep it really smooth, kind of like a Bezier curve. And I don't want that. I just want a straight linear curve from one point to the other, just and one edge essentially. So let's activate that tool again. I'm going to make this curve linear, and then I'm going to V-snap from the knee to that locator. Okay, and I'm just going to call this, let's give it a name, we'll call it left leg 01 vector. No, what's a good name for it? We'll just call it line. Whole vector line. And then I end this with CRV curve. I put it in all caps. I don't know why I did that. Maybe because I like the way it looks better than CRV. Not caps. Doesn't matter. These are probably the only curve objects we're going to create. They're not controls. We're not going to be grabbing them and manipulating them directly. They're just helpers. They're visual tools. So I'll just call it a curve. Okay. And what we're going to do is essentially we want the, let me hide my joints really quick. We want this point to stick to the knee, okay? And we want this point to stick to my control here. And that way, if I move this, for example, it's still going to point back to the knee to let me know what it's controlled to, what it's constraining, right? And if the knee should ever move one way or the other, right, it's always going to point back to this control. Excuse me. Okay, so conceptually, it's pretty simple. Oh, and now's where things get a little bit fun. Can you guys think of a way that we can do that? How do I make a CV follow a control or follow a joint? Not a constraint that will do that, by the way. There are no constraints that you can do directly onto a vertex or a control vertex. You guys have any thoughts?
You might have to dive into the node editor.
The node editor to find some kind of crazy node that will let you connect the values into the CVs. Mm-hmm. No, it's a great thought. And you know what? That may be there. I have no idea. Group them together. That's another great idea. Though, to my knowledge, I don't think that you can group CVs to something else. You can only group transform objects. Great thought. I love the thought. And I ask you guys, I know it's like, well, I don't know. I want you guys to be guessing because so much of rigging is like, well, I wonder if you could do this. I wonder if you could try that. It's messing around. It's not all that different than, you know, like Houdini or Substance Designer, these node-based programs where you just plug something in and be like, oh, scripting? Probably. There's probably some way to do it via script as well. Okay, good. That's good enough guesses. All of those may have valid application. I don't know. Can you somehow get the CVs from the outliner? To my knowledge, no. So here's where we're going to kind of skew an idea, okay? We weren't able to hit it very hard, hit this concept very hard at the end of last semester. But skinning is a deformation system, meaning you allow joints, in this specific case, to deform or control components, right? So the joints drive really it's the transformations directly, or they influence the transformations of vertices on a mesh. But we're not limited just to polygonal objects. We can also skin curves. So the real simple way to do this is we're going to create, or we need joints, but we'll have one joint's going to lock down 100% on one of those CVs, and the other joint's going to lock down 100% on the other CV. And then when we move the joints around, the shape will deform. We're not changing the transformation value, right? But we're deforming the mesh or the curve to follow those joints. So that was something that blew my mind when I went into industry, because there are a lot of things that you can skin beyond just a simple mesh. And it makes for really useful rigging tools as well. So that being the case, though, we do need joints in order to do this. We have a joint already at the knee. Why is that in the wrong location now? Did I move it? Oh, I did move it. We have a joint already at the knee. It's going to follow the IK knee. Great, we're good to know. Good to go, excuse me. But I don't have one here at the pole vector control. So I just need to create one. So let's go up to skeleton, create joints. I'm just going to V-snap to that locator that I have sitting there. Okay, this is oriented to world. Great, perfect. That's exactly what I want. So we just need to give this a name. So I'll just call this left leg or one. Pole vector joint. Good enough. Okay, and then I'm going to make this joint a child of my control here. Typically, you don't do this, right? We don't add skeletons and joints and geometry and other things into the same hierarchy. But this essentially is just kind of this weird little helper object. It's not really affecting the mesh. It's not really part of the skeleton. It's this little helper, okay? So we could constrain it. I could put it in the skeleton group and constrain it, but I don't want to muck up. It doesn't, we're going to set this up and we're never going to look at this joint again. I never want to see it again. So this is it. So I'm just going to take that joint, like I said, and parent it directly under the pole vector control hierarchy. It's just hiding there under the control. And we are going to hide the visibility on that. We're not going to see that anymore. And once that's done, I'm going to select the IK knee joint. So that's a left leg O2 IK joint. And this new little pole vector joint. And then we'll select the curve. And let's go up to skin and bind skin. Okay, and that should, just by the location of the joints to the CVs, it should have already assigned the weights properly, but we're just going to make sure. So I'm going to hide joints really quick on my viewport. Turn off joints. Let's select my curve. And I'm going to select this CV right down where the pole vector control is. And let's go to Windows, General Editors, Component Editor. Okay, we'll make this a little bigger, and sometimes this defaults to a different tab. I need to go to Smooth Skins. All right, did I even show you guys this spreadsheet last time? It's a spreadsheet. Did I show you the component editor?
Yeah.
I think we at least looked at it, right? Okay.
Yeah, we've looked at it.
Good. Okay. Yeah, and that's okay. So I'm selecting that one CV. So it's showing that CV here on the left, and then it's showing any joints that are influencing this particular selection on the top. So you can see right now only one joint, one influence is affecting it. So it has 100% influence. It is the pole vector joint, which is exactly what I want. Let's go down and select the one over by the knee. The IK joint 2 has 100% influence over on that joint. So great, we're good. Everything's set up the way that it should be. So we can show joints again. and we can verify this is working. So we'll select that control and move it around. Right, and you can see now that that line, no matter where I drag it, that line stays connected essentially between those two pieces. Okay. Just kind of clean things up a little bit. So I'll select the joint. Like I said, I don't ever need to see this again, so I'm just going to hide it. Press H, it's gone. Goodbye. Goodbye. And then this curve, I don't want to be able to select this because I could potentially move it or change it, move the CVs. I could really mess this up. So I'm just going to go into the attribute editor. We'll go into display and drawing overrides. We've been here before. Enable overrides. And I'm going to set the display type to template. Okay, and this just grays it out. If you want, you could set it to a color and set it to reference mode. I like this gray because it's there, but it's not like in the way. It's not super obvious. It's not going to really create much visual clutter. Okay, that's pretty well it. We'll delete the locator. We don't need that anymore. We have this pole vector line now. We need to store this somewhere. I'm not going to put it directly into the pole vector, or excuse me, the IK group, because, and this is a concept that we're going to have to get into a little bit. Remember, there's transformation, translate, rotates, and scales, right? And then there's something called deformation, and that's where the components are being moved. Really, this is kind of a one or the other. You either transform an object or you deform an object. If you do both, you get something called a double transformation. If I were to do something like this, where I'm obviously changing the shape of that line, but then I selected the node and actually moved it, I would put it into the wrong position. We don't want that to happen. And if I do end up putting this line into this group, for example, this is into my IK control group. This has all the IK systems in here. And I were to move it or scale it or anything else, then this line would go crazy. We want to avoid that. So instead, I'm going to just group this into its own group, and I'll call this, like we'll just say pole vector line group. And I'm going to create another group, and we'll just call this deformers. I put a lot of like helpers, other deformers that aren't necessarily controlled by the user into this group, okay? And then that deformers group is going to be a child of our asset. So we'll put the other ones in here as well. But this is kind of an asset level group node, separated from controls, because again, I'm not controlling it, separated from skeletons, I'm not controlling it. And it's not driving the mesh, it's kind of its own little thing, own little helper. Okay, so if I were to redo this for all the rest of them, we'll just fly through it this time. I'm going to select all of my pole vector controls and create that locator at the center of each of those. And then I need to create my curves. So create, curve tool, CV curve. Again, degree needs to be set to 1. And then I'll hold V. Oh, I'll be consistent. I started at the knee last time. It really doesn't matter, honestly. And V snapping to the knee and then to the locator. So we'll do the same thing here at the elbows. Snap to the joint, snap to the locator. And same thing here, snap to the joint, snap to the locator. Let's get our naming set up really quick. So this would be, let's pull this open and make sure we do the same thing. Right, leg O1, pole vector line. Left arm O1, pole vector line curve. And right. Wonderful. Okay, then we need to get a joint at every one of these pole vector controls as well. So let's just go to skeleton, and V-snap. Okay, I'll just press enter to end the tool, or I'll press Y. V-snap. Y will end the tool and then restart it again. Press enter to end it. Joints, so we just need to name those correctly as well. So down here at the leg, we've got right joint. This is left arm, and right arm, pull back joint. Okay, and we'll just put these into the hierarchy. So there's the joint, and here's the control. Press P. Joint, control, P, and joint, control, P. All right, and that puts them in place. Okay, I can get rid of these locators. I really don't need them anymore. They're kind of in the way. All right, then we just need to set up our skinning. So I'll select the knee joint and then its respective pull vector joint and then the curve, and we'll just skin, bind skin. Same thing with these. Elbow joint, pull vector joint, curve, skin, bind skin, elbow, pull vector, line, or the curve, skin, bind skin. Okay. These joints, just press H. And then let's set these curves all to template mode. So enable override display type template. Do that for all three of these. Okay. And then verify it's working, right? I could kind of just bend the arm here. Bend the arm. Move my pull vector control around. Right, and again, you get that really nice indicator. Oh, this is what this goes to. Let's do the same thing here and here. Yes, I'll just do that all to get my character back at its default space and give it a save. Good. My phone buzzed. Does that mean someone? Oh, yeah. Yes. Alexis, we can chat after class. That's great. Okay, cool little thing, right? Nice little indicator, pretty easy to set up. Any questions on that thing?
I like it.
Yeah, that's nice, right? Okay, let's give your brains a little break. We've got another 25 minutes left of class. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing, you guys. I got to put all of these lines into the deformer group. I'm just taking all of those and parenting them into that line group there in the deformers. Okay, so now, like I said, let's just give your brains a little bit of a break. Let you get up and walk around for a second. So we'll meet back here at 4. Whoa, I just turned 4:16. 4:21. Let's give you 5 minutes, okay? I'll see you in a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah. All righty. Hopefully we're all back. Okay. Phew. What comes next? So now we've got our FK system built, we've got our IK system built. Now we need to do a little bit of blending between the two, okay? So we are going to need our transform object. Remember our transform control, that's kind of our root level control. We gotta get that built because that's where we're going to put our switches. And then we're gonna do a whole bunch of constraints and a whole bunch of hooking up attributes. Okay, I'm talking to myself. I'm assuming someone's here. Is anyone here listening to me?
Hi.
Hey, Glenn,
Okay.
how are you?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, good.
I'm a ghost.
Good. Oh no, it's haunted. All righty. Then let's take care of it. I don't know if I need to go over the principle of the RK system or not, but I think we drew this up, right? We kind of went through this already. Was that us? No, I guess we'll just go over it again. Just really simple. What's this? Oh, that's right. We had a cute guy. No, this isn't it. Okay. The idea really quick again is we've got our FK system, our FK joint chain, right, with its associated controls. So its controls are here and they are moving the joint chains. And then we've also got our IK chain. Okay, and our IK chain will use squares, and I'll make my little, whatever I called that shape, diamond thing, and squares, right? This is what we just built. So these controls are only moving this specific joint chain, and these controls are only moving this specific joint chain, okay? So, but we need a single joint chain in order to drive the actual geometry, so that's what we're going to have here is our intermediary. We've got, it's their exact duplicates, right? I should have written this here. This is FK, this is IK. And this one is our RK, or receiving kinematics. And we're just going to create constraints, magical rainbow constraints. Right? So the elbow from either system, and the shoulder from either system, and the wrist from either system is going to constrain the RK joint, the respective RK joint. And then we're going to create essentially a little attribute. Let's use the other magical rainbow. We're going to create an IK switch attribute that's either going to say use just all of the IK stuff, or it's going to say just use all of the FK stuff. And it's doing that to this RK system, saying follow one or the other, right? So let's get that started. So for this, we need to go back to our joints. So we'll do a little more cleaning up with controls. In fact, yeah, let's just come back to those later as far as where we're going to put those in the hierarchy of our controls. Because we're going to have to start kind of separating IK and FK systems. And we only have 14 minutes left. So skeletons. I'm going to go to the skeleton group. And we're only dealing with these 4 limbs, right? Where we have IK systems and FK systems. So let's start with the left arm. Now we already have these 3 systems in place, because we duplicated them very early on in this phase, or in our joint creation, joint layout phase. We created the 3 of these and expand these. Okay, we'll have to work our way through some of this constraint stuff. Again, we're creating a constraint from the FK, from the IK to the RK. Okay, so the FK and the IK are both going to be targets. So to do that, we select the left arm O1 FK joint, IK joint, and lastly is the RK joint. And we're going to create a parent and a scale constraint, because we want that RK joint to move, to rotate, and to scale according to its analog in the FK or the IK system. So that's why we're doing both an IK and an FK. We're doing both a parent and a scale constraint. So now we go to joint 2, FK, IK, RK, parent, scale. Joint 3, FK, IK, RK, parent, and scale. Okay, so your RK system should look something like this now. It's going to have 2 constraints per joint. And if you take a peek at any of those constraints, in the channel box you should see is your 2 targets, both the FK and the IK joints, the respective joints. Okay, that's pretty easy to set up those constraints. Let's just go through and do it to all the other limbs. So I just did a shift expand there to do the entire hierarchy for the right arm. So again, we're going to go, let's go ahead and show these just so we can see them all. We're going to go arm O1 FK, IK, RK, parent, and scale. And joint 2 FK, IK, RK, parent, scale. Joint 3 FK, IK, and RK, parent, scale. Great. One's done for now. We're going to have to come back and hook our switches up, but the constraints themselves are ready to go. Okay, leg. Same thing. We'll show these joint chains real quick. So FK, IK, and RK for joint 1, parent, scale. For joint 2, FK, IK, and RK, parent, scale. And same thing for joint 3. Parent and scale. Left leg's ready. And now we finish off with the right leg. So we have O1, FK, IK, and RK, parent and scale. You can, by the way, we can use step walking. That's where we use the arrow keys to walk through the hierarchy. So I can press down. Well, if I'm in the outliner, I can press down. And that will automatically go to the child of whatever you have selected. So we do parent and scale again. Make sure that select, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, because the selection order, I'm never really certain if it's proper or not. So joint 2, you can see it's got the FK and the IK joint, so that did work. So let's go back to those and press down one more time, parent and scale. Just verify that my targets are correct. I do have the FK and the IK joint for my targets for both of those constraints. So let's go ahead and close that out, and then we can verify this. If you remember, the target weights basically says I have this much influence. And like everything else in Maya, it doesn't say 0 to 100%, it says 0 to 1. So basically you can multiply these numbers by 100 to know what your actual percentage is. So 1 means complete control. So the weird thing though is that both of these targets have 100% or complete control over the joint, which essentially means they both have half. They both have the same amount of influence, so they're both affecting it 50% essentially. So I could verify this just by moving one of these legs. You'll see the IK, where that moves, you can see the FK stays in place, and you can see that the RK is moving exactly half the amount that it should if it were following the IK. It's also half the amount that it should if it were following the FK, right, which is remaining in place. So what we need to do is adjust the weight values of our constraints in the RK system, right, so that they're either all the way on and move with the FK system, or they're all the way off and move with the IK system. And there's no way that I'll finish that before we end, so I probably ought to call that a stopping point. Let's build a transform control really quick, and then we'll stop for the day. So for the transform, we're just going to create one big circle at the origin. Okay, so I'll just say create NURBS primitives circle. Let's just scale this guy up. Oh, that's turned the wrong way, so I may as well rotate this as well. 90 degrees. Okay, so let's just write down there on the world. And it just needs to be big enough to be around my character. Okay, there's no exact science to this. So yay big. Let's go ahead and freeze this thing because the transform is going to match the world, the whole world, as far as orientation goes. So we'll just freeze that out. Let's call this transform control. And then group it. We'll call this transform control group. Okay, and let's just stick this into the controllers group right there, top level. This is going to be basically the daddy of them all. All the other controls are going to follow this transform control. Let's hide my geo one more time. My controllers group is hidden right now, right there. So I need to unhide that in order to see it. Or my layer was hidden. So now I can see it. You can see I'm also seeing all of the FK and the IK and every other control in there as well. And that's okay because we're going to have to also tie together the visibilities of the different groups as well. So I want to see them all. We're going to start actually creating the, I guess, functionality and operations of these different systems together now, combine them all up. And honestly, we're getting pretty close to finishing this thing. So, you know, anyone who's feeling a little behind, I guess if I ever put any fire under you, in the next week or so, we should be finishing this up. And then you guys will be doing this on your own. So the whole concept here, we spent a whole month. We will have spent a whole month on this idea of going through it piece by piece by piece by piece together. Again, just with the objective of making sure you know how to do it from start to finish. And you can go back to the videos at any time and do this again. But really, this is just to ensure you have a solid foundation because we're going to build on it from here. So you're going to do it again on a different character all by yourself. I'll help where needed, but I'm not like, you're just going to do the same thing by yourself. Okay. And then from there, we're going to build on top of this and actually build some more robust systems. But again, established foundation. So we will pick up from there next time and actually create some attributes and use the connection editor and a couple other things. So I will make sure that I save that. And then are there any questions you guys have in the next few minutes?
So for the character we do on our own, how long do you giving us to do that?
I got in my mind a weekend. I'm just playing. Don't have a heart attack. I got in my head 2 weeks, but it'd be really great if we could do it faster than that. And so I want to say shorter. I'm going to actually think about it. I know you guys can do it faster, but I also know you're juggling a lot of other things. So I will actually, once we're done with this, I want to take a minute and I will listen to your feedback and your input and we'll kind of base it off of that. Doesn't mean I'll change it necessarily, but I do want to listen first. And hopefully that's fair. I'm going to push up, but I'm not going to be unrealistic. I know maybe there might be some people that are unrealistic in their expectations. I don't know. I have just maybe I've heard or I'm making it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's my soft answer is 2 weeks, but I really would love to do it faster than that. So great. Any other questions?
I had a real quick one. I forgot where the place to set the preferred rotation angle, like the 5 is, and I was just hoping that you could quickly show.
Bet if I can get to my IK chain here. So you have to bring up the attribute editor. And that value is set on the knee, the middle joint. So the knee or the elbow.
Okay.
And that's right here above the joint orients.
What was the keybind for that? Or
for the attribute editor?
Yeah.
Control A.
Okay.
That will toggle back and forth between the attribute editor and the channel box.
That's why. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all I needed to remember. Thank you.
Good. You bet. Oh, I forgot to put the on-screen keyboard on. Sorry.
Yeah, that was what I was using. Nah, it's all good though.
Cool. All right. Okay, any other questions? You guys at the end of a long day?
I have a question, but it's not related to this rig. It's related to script.
Okay. Well, let's see. Does anyone else have a question about the rig? All right, brother, all yours.
Sweet. So I'm trying to create a script for like essentially creating the groups and controls for a joint and then renaming those to match the joint itself. And so I'm trying to go through creating one of those pin controls where it's the circle above the line. And so I have the control created, but then when I try and delete the essentially the blank transforms afterwards, it's saying that there's nothing that matches those names or the names of those things.
Let's.
I could show you the script.
Take a peek at your script. Yeah, that'd be great. And Alexis, I haven't forgotten you. As soon as we're done here.
Nah, it's fine. No worries.
Can you see?
I can. Let me put it over here so I can see it better. Okay.
So this is the error I'm getting. No object name.
NURB square one and make a NURB square one. Okay.
And this is where I'm trying to delete it. So I think it's failing at this one. I don't think it's even getting to this one, but essentially I create the circle and have a variable called circle group.
Okay.
And then
and that includes the name of the curve and also the construction node. Is that what it is?
I think so.
A make like a
yeah,
make NURB circle node. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so essentially I stopped messing with the circle pretty much at this point. So so I'll walk you through it. So first I do a pick walk down to get the shape itself.
Okay.
Then I move the shape group and then freeze it, delete its history, and then I jump onto the square, which is what I'm using to grab a line. There might be a better way to get a line, but that's how I'm doing it.
Okay.
So I do that, and then circle comes up again.
So you're just doing the same thing. You're moving that square into position, deleting the history on it. Okay.
Yep. And then right here, I create the group. Then I reselect the circle, the line, and the group, and then do the parent function to bring them all into one NURBS curve.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And then when I try and delete it, it gives me this error.
Okay. NURB square one. Run this. Let's pull up a scene. I want you to run it, and I want to see what happens as far as what's created.
Sorry, that was just okay. So essentially, it's these three things that are made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
and
all the pieces I want are right here. And then I just want to delete these two.
You're trying to delete the rest of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think what's happening, if you go back to your script, when you create a circle group, it's storing two things. It's storing the name of your object, and it's also storing the construct, right? That's like the make NURB circle or make NURB square.
Okay.
When you delete your history, it gets rid of make NURBS square.
Gotcha.
So when you delete that, my guess is it's finding NURB square one, but it's unable to find a node called make NURB square one. and so it's airing out because it's not there.
Okay.
So
So
what I might suggest is instead of storing that whole group, just store the transform name.
okay. So what would be the best way of doing that?
Just there where you make the circle.
Mhm.
So it's creating a list, but really, if you just want the first element in that list, which is the name of that's a NURB square, NURB circle.
Could I do something like this?
Exactly. It's exactly what you do. Yep.
And then I'm assuming same thing for this one, probably.
Yep. And I don't know. That's the first thing I see. It might work.
Shot. Yep, that did it.
Sweet.
That's it. Cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Nice, dude. Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Got it. Okie dokie. I better stop recording.